joining us. It's me, Kirby, Kevin Garlington, and Ian Westerman. We are down a couple pros today. Megan is at home because they have a sick baby.
It's a tough one. Yeah. Hopefully it's going around.
Yeah, there's a lot of gross sickness going around here in Wisconsin. But we're glad that you are here today. So let us know where you're tuning in from all over the world. We already have people from South Africa. I don't know where else. So I want to know who we're talking to. So hello, YouTube. Hello, Facebook. Today we're going to be talking exclusively about backhand. So make sure that your topic or that your question is only having to do with the topic. If it's not, we have to glance over it until next time.
Do we have somebody monitoring Facebook?
That
Like questions?
me.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
So
Cool.
I'm going to be pulled in a lot of directions looking at all of your questions. We're going to do our very, very best to answer as many as humanly possible. I think that we should just start off in a question and not even hear from you guys.
Hey, we've got Scott here in the chat. What's up, Scott?
Oh, Scott, hey.
See, we got India,
One of our
Houston,
VIPs.
Canada, Mexico City, Las Vegas, California, the Netherlands,
Nice.
Orange County, Yorkshire. Wow. Awesome. Hey, Scott. Good to see you.
Fantastic.
Scott's getting some love.
Oh, yeah. You guys have seen Scott's videos on our channel. He's one of our VIPs who came here from Vegas. So,
Bosnia. Wow.
okay, you start this off with this question.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so a question came in on YouTube about injury and one-handed backhand. Why are you having me read this?
Because my mic is not working.
Oh, really? Oh, nice. And the question was, I have one-handed backhand and I dislocated my shoulder doing so about 3 years ago. So wondering about advice on dislocation. I mean, to me, that sounds like probably over kind of extension and overdoing the follow through, which is rare for amateur players to kind of have too much range of motion. But that's what it sounds like to me. Like, could be some kind of muscle imbalance or I had a student once in Maryland who was just hyper flexible in her shoulder, and she would actually kind of routinely dislocate her shoulder on her serve. It's something that she had to like work on to strengthen that part of her body. Obviously, we don't know anything about you and your body personally, so yeah, I can't really give any detailed feedback, but those are my kind of initial thoughts.
I would say one other thing is, because funny enough, I kind of messed up my back hitting a two-handed backhand. But I think sometimes with a one-handed backhand, if that's what we're talking about, if you're not releasing with your hips a little bit, what happens, you wind up getting in the stuck position, and that may also result in you putting a lot of pressure on your shoulder. We want to definitely have that nice release at the end where it allows us to slow down and we're not kind of stuck forcing it. So maybe that's something to look out for if you feel like that's something you're doing.
Awesome. How's my audio now, Gabe?
It says mute. Receiver says mute.
It says mute. How about when I talk through his
How about when I unmute your mic?
That's probably helpful.
How about now?
How about now? Okay. All right, let's go to Mustafa's question. Thanks for asking this question on Facebook, Mustafa. Hi, everyone. I want to ask about the biggest mistakes, the most common mistakes on the when hitting the one-handed backhand. What are the most common mistakes? Yeah.
Man, I could talk about quite a few of them. I think the most common one we've been seeing recently with our VIP students is inadequate initial turn or rotation. I think at best, amateur players tend to get to about perpendicular to the baseline. And when you look at Federer, Gasquet, Wawrinka, anybody with a really, really nice one-handed backhand, across the board, they're getting like 45 degrees past that to the point where their back is facing not completely towards the net on the other side, but about halfway to that point from perpendicular or sideways. So I'll just start there. I'm sure Kirby and Kevin have some thoughts, but inadequate initial turn or load or coil with the body, I think is a big one recently. It's been a big pattern for us recently.
Tag. I think a big one is what I call kind of like the fishtail. So to take the racket back on the one-handed backhand, what happens is instead of pulling the racket through, I wind up kind of punching it with the wrist, and that's a big one. So you go from using big muscles to hit your backhand to hitting small muscles in your wrist, and that's one really big mistake. I would say one other really big mistake is that prematurely opening up, okay? So as you're hitting and you're in this position, you open up too early, and the timing just goes, it's just really bad. So you're gonna really make sure you time that correct and you're not opening your shoulders up too early. If you are, you're gonna feel a real big lack of power, and the spacing is gonna feel off because you're pulling your racket off to the side too early.
Next question. Can practicing left-handed forehands help a right-handed backhand over time?
Yeah.
I feel like you guys have differing opinions on this.
Bring it up. Bring it up.
I mean, I think
Come on, fight.
it's a good specific. I think it's a good specific tool or tactic for a specific type of student or technical deficiency. I don't think there's like a rampant. Whose audio is up? Somebody's audio.
Not
is
mine.
up.
Maybe it's mine? Oh, sorry.
I don't think there's the whole thing with
Here.
practicing left-handed forehands is to help utilize the non-dominant side and extend through and get what it feels like to actually be active with your left side and your left hand and release. So for a player who tends to kind of chicken wing their backhand and is really over dominant with their strong side, with their right side, I think it absolutely makes a lot of sense. It's not like a universal, fix. I think a lot of times it's described as that. Oh, two-handed backhand is just like a left-handed forehand. No, not really. Like there's some elements, yes, of course. Like the left side needs to be active and doing its job, doing its part. But there's tremendous differences between a righty two-handed backhand and a lefty forehand. So it's not like some kind of universal magic, like, oh, just practice lefty forehands and you'll have great two-handed backhand. Like it's not that simple, but for specific deficiencies, it's like exactly the right thing, and it's great. Those are my thoughts.
Oh.
Tag.
Okay. Tag. Like tag day.
Does that make sense?
What part?
I
What
don't
you
know.
said?
Anything that I just said.
What'd you say?
I don't remember.
I think it is in certain situations when you want to develop the left hand better. So a lot of times I've had students that don't have I don't want to say control, but they just don't have the same amount of strength and level of precision with their left hand. So, and also I feel like it's a great way to train your footwork on your backhand side. So a lot of times I'll have a player start off where they can just get in the habit of stepping in, just hitting left-handed forehands. I'll also have them going out hitting left-handed open, and that translates into them doing the exact same strokes when they're in the two hands. Now I will say really another really big important thing is making sure that kind of what Ian was saying is you don't want that chicken wing, and that's where a great drill of getting that left arm to extend. You see a lot of really good backhand players where they get that left arm and it's all the way extended. And I do feel like, some pros are a little bit more right hand dominant and some pros are a little bit more left hand dominant. So it really depends on which one you are and what's going to work best for you.
All righty, we are getting flooded with questions. So I am just treading water. Let's move on to Scott Hare's question. He was a VIP recently, and he came to us, and over the course of 2 days and 10 hours on court, we worked on a number of items with him, including his backhand. Now you can see his full tutorial either in Academy or the tutorial on YouTube for his progress and what we taught. But Scott's question, he's live now in the chat, is he says, I was stuck not loading back far enough, which you can see in the tutorial. But while working on it, my timing is suffering. What are some suggestions for fixing?
Yeah, well, first of all, Scott, you can just text me anytime if you have questions. But yeah, Scott had that, what I described a couple minutes ago. He had that inadequate initial coil or turn with his body. And so the tricky part about this, there's really nothing in tennis technique that operates in a vacuum. When you make one change, it affects other parts of a stroke, which is why we do a tremendous amount of work with progressions and isolating just kind of one element at a time. So what Scott is describing is He went from just making a 90-degree turn to quite a bit more than that. And once now that his body is turning more, he has to initiate his forward rotation towards the point of contact sooner than he did before, because he has that extra range of motion that needs to be completed before he can uncoil enough to actually meet the ball and make contact in a good, strong position. So, Scott, my favorite tool or drill for working on timing is to exaggerate in the other direction. So if you and I were back on the court again working together, what I would have you do is focus on making sure you're continuing to make a full rotation, which we worked on. And then B, I would ask you to pick a target that's way cross court, like outside of the court. So I would ask you to, if Scott was here hitting backhands, I would literally ask Scott to like hit the curtain that separated our court with the next court. Or if there's no curtain, just any kind of random object off the court, cross court. So Scott is making contact here with his backhand. And the whole idea here is to uncoil much sooner than he has to get a feel for what it's like to really turn open early enough to make contact way further out in front than he would normally want to for like a real life situation. And so that exaggeration can help kind of recalibrate the brain a little bit, recalibrate the timing and the feel for the swing. And then I would have him slowly, okay, great, now hit the alley, and on the next one, okay, now let's just hit down the middle of the court. Because currently I'm guessing he's late. I probably should have asked, but I'm just assuming he's late because of this extra turn and rotation. And so this is the way I would go about fixing it. But it's all about recalibrating the timing of the forward rotation, and that can take some time. But Scott, seriously, text me if you have other questions.
Scott, it says late.
Okay,
Yes.
Yeah, I figured.
Yes. Okay. Next question. How do you generate power on a two-handed backhand? That's a question from Captain Brood. Looks like Kevin can't wait to get out of his
I was tagging on him a little bit. But yeah, I think for me, power from any stroke is going to be generated from the legs up, from the ground up. So the biggest thing you want to focus is getting in a good starting position, a good ready position. Sorry, not ready position, but a good uniturn that coils your body up, that prepares you to unload with your hips. So the position I think of in my forehand and my backhand is pushing my hips against my shoulders. So sometimes I see players like this, and you can see the hips and the shoulders are even. What I want to do is make sure there's a little bit more where you can see where my shoulders are facing this way and my hips are facing this way. They're pushing against each other. And that allows me to really use my body to uncoil. The next part is I want to extend through the ball. So I'm generating a little bit more racket head speed from my hips that are moving up through my shoulders. And I'm also using my arm to extend through the ball and penetrate the ball a little bit more. So I think that's the way I think of generating more power on your backhand.
Awesome. From Philip Marest, is the face of the racket closed on contact for a topspin backhand?
Oh, that's your favorite.
Maybe a little
Cool.
is the answer. For those of us hitting less than 90-mile-an-hour ground strokes, if you were to take super slow motion footage of successful backhands, you would see basically right at perpendicular. If it was closed at all, it would be a couple of degrees. And even among professional players, the most closed you'll see a racket face on a ground stroke is like 10 degrees, no more than that. So when you take racket head speed and cut it in half, which is the case for most of us compared to the pros, the racket face doesn't need to be nearly as closed to keep the ball in play, especially if it's a nice long, smooth swing. So for me, like within the context of teaching amateur players, I just refer to it as perpendicular, as flat. I don't talk about it being closed at all, and unless we're talking about a specific situation where a player is well inside the baseline and making contact up above shoulder height, then the racket can start to close and should be closing more. But if we're talking about a shot from the baseline at waist height at an average, 4 or 5 level ground stroke, it really should not be closed at all in reality. If it feels like it's closed to you when the ball goes in play, then that's fine. Go ahead and search for that feeling. But if you were to actually record it with high quality video, you would see in reality, it's really not. Maybe a couple of degrees, but very, very little.
Okay, these questions are amazing. This is our third live broadcast, and they just get better and better every week. So
Kirby's so impressed.
I just have to say,
Good
I'm
job,
just
everybody.
proud of you guys. I'm having a moment. I'm just trying to keep up with you guys. Next question. We've had this a couple of times on a one-handed backhand. Let's see. Where is it? That's not the one I wanted. Straight.
Yin Wang.
Okay, on a one-handed backhand, I have trouble with high balls, like returning a kick serve. Any tips? That's from John Szymanski on Facebook.
Go ahead.
Oh, the dreaded. I feel your pain. The dreaded high one-handed backhand is probably one of the toughest shots in tennis, especially on the kick serve. What I've found that really helps me is, first of all, you got to try to just avoid getting the ball above your shoulders. And the easiest way to do that, especially if you're returning a kick serve, is actually practicing when you're returning your serve, hitting off your outside leg and taking the ball early, which is a pretty tough thing. So I'm going to give you kind of a range of different suggestions. You can adjust your position and try to see if you can sneak in and probably chip it. That's a great suggestion. If you do want to work on that outside leg, I recommend a lot of times really focus on just hitting off this outside leg and taking the ball before it gets high above your shoulders. Just like any stroke, you have a range of which is the most optimal place to hit it. And for the one-handed backhand, it's very tough to generate any power or consistency in strike and swing at that height. So I do recommend that if you can move in and maybe chip it, take it early, you can take it off the outside leg or you can move back. It's just one of those shots. It's just a very difficult shot.
Yep. If you really struggle with it, I would take a look at your grip, possibly. If you have a relatively conservative grip, especially if you're kind of close to a continental grip, if your hand is spread out across the grip a lot, and your base knuckle of your index finger is not very turned up towards the top, then it can be really, really difficult to handle anything up above the shoulder. So I would take a look at that for sure. Especially at higher levels, faster speeds of play. You want your knuckles to be a little bit straighter across the handle and also a little bit further up towards the top, which helps keep the racket face more square and makes it a lot easier to handle shots that get up outside your strike zone. But technically speaking, I would say take a look at that. But position-wise and like reading the shot-wise, I think Kevin's suggestions were awesome.
So while you're up there, we have a quick question. What grip style do you recommend for a good one-handed backhand? What do you recommend? Thanks for your question, Rajesh.
I don't know. It depends on the style of play. I mean, I've hit with players who hit a really flat drive type of shot that were really close to continental. One at the club I taught at last actually was a French Open doubles champion, like just incredible ball striker, and he had a very conservative grip, very close to continental, and just struck it super clean and super flat. And then on the other side of the spectrum, you've got players whose knuckles are straight across the handle and very, very far up over the top of the grip. That would be kind of the other extreme. I think for most players, somewhere in the middle is the way to go. You can have a little bit of spread across the handle, and your base knuckle of your index finger can be anywhere north of the continental bevel, and I think you're good to go. Anywhere in that ballpark. I'm definitely not one to say you need to have like this grip. There's a wide, even among professional players, there's a range of different grips. So it really depends on how flat of a ball striker are you versus how heavy of a ball do you like to hit. The heavier of a ball you like to try to hit, the more towards the top your hand should be and the more straight across your knuckles should be. The flatter of a ball striker you are, the more you can slide down towards continental a bit and the more spread across the grip your hand can start to be. But of course, these are, general rules of thumb. So it kind of depends on what kind of player you are and what kind of result you like to try to hit.
Fantastic. From Facebook, Barry Mizrahi has a question. Question is, on the one-handed backhand, should the hitting arm be totally straight? And a couple of people have chimed in
At
and had the
contact?
same question.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Easy peasy, lemon squeezy.
Yeah, any kind of bend is really tough when you only have one arm to rely on for strength and stability. Any kind of bend, the ball tends to really start to boss you around. Locking out allows you to have a strong connection between the racket face and your body. On a two-handed backhand, you've got your non-dominant arm doing work through the point of contact. And so for most players, there is a little bit of a bend with the dominant arm. But on a one-handed backhand, arms should be straightening, and really across the board with professional players, you'll see completely straight at contact, because it's just the strongest, most stable position when you're only using that one limb to connect yourself to the point of contact. Does that make sense?
Yep. Follow-up question on the two-handed backhand, the non-dominant arm. Is the elbow bent or stretched on impact?
You'll see a range here. It depends on the grip that you have with your non-dominant hand. I suppose I should show this right-handed. The further you are towards Western with your non-dominant hand, the straighter your arm is going to be at contact. If my picture memories serve me correct, I believe Nadal is really straight at contact. His hand is pretty far towards the bottom of the grip. Most WTA players have bend in both arms at contact. Not all of them. It depends. Serena sometimes will straighten out, but other times she'll stay bent. So it depends on what grip you have, and also kind of what style hitter you are as well. There's definitely variation there. What do you think?
No, yeah. For the two-handed, I've seen variation between straight. I think starting to see a lot more, especially in the ATP, a lot more straight arms, more extension. When I look at like a Djokovic, when I look at, I have this image of Agassi, but I mean, even the generation before, I think the generation before you had a little bit more bend, and as we move into this generation of players, you see a lot more straight extending on the two-handed backhand on the ATP.
Awesome questions. We keep having a theme pop up on both Facebook and YouTube that I am curious to get your input about. It's from various stages in the game. One guy said he's got a junior that he's coaching that's becoming stronger and stronger. Another person said they're playing in England with courts. They're often synthetic grass and often wet. So in either scenario, and a couple others even, they're considering switching from a two-handed to a one-handed backhand. At what point do you sit back and you actually commit to changing that in your game?
The big one.
When does it make a big impact for you that's gonna make your game better?
I think.
I'm gonna let you think about it. I just thought of something. Now, one thing though is.
Thanks, Gary Vaynerchuk.
I'm sorry. I'm itching to talk here. I'm just looking at these questions.
Why did you pause? Why didn't you just keep talking?
I know, because it just hit me.
Oh, okay. Please. We need to hear it.
But now the one thing that absolutely drives me crazy as a pro is I used to have, I had a few students like this, but one in particular who would come to me
Go back and forth.
week after week and say, this week I want to do this week, and flip-flop. Don't flip-flop.
For sure.
Have one. Somebody asked about the potential for, he's having trouble hitting two-handed backhand return. So he was wondering, do I switch it to a one-hand? Now, commit to one. It will save you so much agony if you just make the commitment to the one shot. We're getting a package. Come on in and say hi to our live broadcast on YouTube. All right. So Devin, what do you think about what's the tipping point? When do you change between a two and a one?
I think you have to consider a lot of things. Funny enough, I've done exactly that. So if you ever find any pictures of me playing college tennis, I was a two-handed backhand, and I decided to become a one-handed backhand. My reasoning was I was having some back trouble with my two-handed backhand, and I decided to switch. And kind of tagging on to Kirby, I made a commitment, a big one, to only hit one-handed backhands. I remember going and even practicing with juniors and just getting to the point where I would not hit forehands, and sometimes I'd run around and try to hit more backhands just to get the reps in. And I would lose a lot of matches, but in the long run, I just, I committed to what I wanted, and it worked out really well. I think, the other thing you have to.
My hat for Costa Rica.
Everybody.
It occurred to me on Sunday that I don't own a tennis hat. I was like,
it's here.
We're leaving for Costa Rica on Friday. I decided I need a hat.
Well, try it on.
This is the unboxing.
Try it on and see if it fits your head.
Well, I gotta mess with it.
Well, I know, but let's just see. It looks like a classy hat.
Kevin, please keep going.
So I would say the other thing you have to consider is you're talking about a lot of different worlds when you're thinking about, I think, adult recreation and junior tennis. I've spent a lot of time in the junior tennis arena, and you have to really know the commitment level of your player. You have to really communicate.
No.
Are we feeling it?
I can see myself in that. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think it's good.
Yeah,
I think it's good.
Good choice.
All right.
Sorry.
Yep.
But I think you have to really know the commitment level of your player and over yourself, if this is you. Talking from the junior standpoint, I think it's a much tougher road unless there's a real significant issue technically, physically, where something just can't be done. But I've helped juniors improve their backhand when it wasn't that good, if it was a two-handed backhand. And it's very rare, I don't think I've ever done, where I want to switch, because in that arena, you just have a lot of commitment, because they're going through a phase of competing and getting the feedback from that. And at that level, a huge drop in confidence is a big blow to the game. So if you are a player, I would recommend them not playing, not competing, and putting them through that. You work on the switch, you continually practice that switch, maybe in some practice situations on court, close ball, shadowing, and building yourself up to any kind of live ball situation. If you're an adult, that's the limit. I feel like you have a lot of time, and again, you have to make that commitment, and you have to really don't use the switch as a cop-out to go like, oh, I can't hit this, so I'm going to switch this on this. It just makes it more complicated. Commit to one and improve that if it's just something you want to really get good at.
I totally agree. Commit.
Gosh.
I know. I just love to embarrass you.
Were you channeling Oprah there?
You get a backhand. Hey, you get a backhand. All right. Next question. How can I get more depth on my two-hander, particularly off harder, heavier balls? Depth question.
Depth is all.
That's from Nicola. Thank you.
Depth comes down to a combination of the pace of your shot, the height of your shot, and the spin on your shot. So if you're struggling with depth, one of those three things is off. Either you're not driving through the ball very strongly, aka you're not creating much pace, or you're hitting the ball way too low. And so maybe you're hitting the ball strong, but it's just clearing the net, which will not give you very much depth. So take a look at the height of your shots. It's not very likely that it's spin, but it's possible. Some players really kind of overspin their ground strokes and make tons of topspin, and everything tends to really kind of dive short. It could be that as well. So observe, and there's your answer. Or it could be a combination of all three, but it's either the pace of your shot, the height of your shot, or the rotation that's on your shot, or a combination of those three.
Now, this is an intriguing question to me. I'm going to butcher your name, so I apologize, but Diaburu?
I don't see it.
I don't.
Oh, yeah.
Can 5-year-old kids learn the one-handed backhand? Now, that's question one. I have question two from you. We're going to follow up with that.
I mean, the kid better be a pretty sick athlete. I mean, I've worked with a lot of little kids, not for a while, but I mean, they're struggling. Most of them at 5 years old are struggling to just meet the ball cleanly. So, I mean, one-handed backhand is a really tall order. It's not impossible. Like, I have seen it. But even at 5 years old, I mean, for those of us who spend a lot of time on the court, watching adults, watching kids, we know within 4 seconds what kind of athlete we're working with. And so it's going to be a very small minority of 5-year-olds that could possibly pull that off. It's not impossible, but it's going to have to be a special case, in my opinion.
I will say that it is possible. And it's a lot
My 5-year-old
more.
could not do it. Sorry,
Well,
guys.
your 5-year-old wouldn't want to do it. She wouldn't have the desire to do
I was
it.
thinking about Joel, and neither of them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, my 7-year-old could never pull it off. My almost 5-year-old, not a chance. No chance either.
Well, I would believe that a requirement, first of all, is to make sure that they have the right equipment, so that they're starting with maybe not even a red ball, but even a
So
foam
wooden racket.
ball.
Oh.
Yeah, wooden rackets. The heavier, the better. You know, make sure that they're starting with a 21 or 23-inch racket, and they're using a red ball or a foam ball on a small court that's scaled to their level. In that case, I think it's totally doable. I
Yeah.
think you could get them rallying with a one-hander, and for sure.
Megan,
No, I totally agree.
Megan Patterson in the chat says we're looking good.
How are we doing at home?
Nice job, everybody.
I think tagging on to Kirby, it's really about, first of all, I mean, you do have to have a good athlete or a decent athlete. You don't have to be, I think, spectacular. But I think it's putting them in the right environment so they can succeed. So I think Kirby's talking about something that's really important. And as working with kids, where we start off with foam balls and go to orange balls, or sorry, foam, and then red, and then orange, then green, it makes it so much easier to create a complete game early. There's this, I might have to find and put in that there's this unreal video of these two kids, and I think they're like, maybe like 7, and it looks like you're watching Federer and Nadal play, and they're playing, I think, on like an orange ball court, and they're coming up, falling, everything. And I think if you're not used to seeing that, you would think it's totally not possible, but it is. And I've seen kids that play on green dot and orange ball courts, one-handed backhand, and in that environment, if you're not completing, I think, the kid's game at around 10, 11, 12, or a little bit earlier, where they have everything in their package, by using that kind of pathway, then you're doing them a disservice.
Preach. When and how do you decide to hit the backhand closed and open stance? So when it comes to how you decide what stance that you're going to use, it's going to be something that happens, dare I say, naturally, because you're not going to think about it. Maybe not naturally, but subconsciously.
Depends on how good your habits are.
Because the thing is that it depends on the incoming ball. So if you have a lot of time to set up, that you can run over, sorry, that's my forehand. You can run over and be prepared and set up in a closed or a square stance, then that's great. But if you're farther out on the run, then you're probably going to be more so forced to be in an open stance. It simply depends on the incoming ball and how fast you can get to it, a number of different factors. So it's something that, I mean, I don't know about you, but like I would never think about on court that, okay, I'm going to hit this ball open stance unless I'm deliberately working on it. It's just not something that pops up. So that is how you choose. So train it so that you have all of the options as far as your stances go, and then trust it. And that's my advice to you. Let's move on to the next question from Larry Spears from Facebook. Thank you for watching, Larry. I have a solid one-handed cross-court backhand, but I tend to sail them when I go down the line. What do you think the issue is? Also, Kevin, your one-handed backhand is awesome.
Thank you.
Who said that?
That's Larry. It's Larry.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. I wish my one-hander was half as good as Kevin's.
Backhand and
all right, sorry.
I feel like we just went down a
fixated on
little
how bad
rabbit
my
hole.
backhand is. It took, I mean, we're like 45 minutes in. I'm actually happy it took that long. My backhand self-love has improved slightly,
Oh, that's great.
but it's still pretty bad.
Backhandtherapy.com.
Yeah. Okay, so geometry is working against you. The net is higher when you go down the line, the court is shorter. And so I think for me, the key thing is trajectory, AKA shape. If you're engaged in a cross-court rally and you're hitting your standard rally ball, and then you change direction and go down the line without any alteration in the shape of your shot, then your margins have just decreased significantly. And for like an amazing ball striker, for like a top level junior or like a 5.0 plus player, this really it doesn't need to be that much of a factor or a focus. But for a 3.5 player or a 4.0 player, taking the same trajectory and just changing direction without any change in shape will lead to a lot of mistakes. So if you're missing long, combination of either the way you fix that is either by lowering your shot or by changing the amount of spin on your shot, or a combination of both. That you shouldn't have to slow down unless you're making like just a huge cut at the ball and you're over swinging. A confident like 7 out of 10 swing should be totally doable if the height of your shot is appropriate and the shape of your shot is appropriate. I think for a lot of amateur players, when they do change direction, they immediately go into a kind of a kill mindset and everything becomes kind of overjuiced and they're trying too hard, and a lot of errors happen that way. Think of changing direction more so as working the point as opposed to now's my chance to like go for the kill shot or the winner. Sometimes that is the case depending on the point situation, but don't overdo it, don't overcook it, and make sure you're shaping it appropriately. I guess those are my thoughts.
It's good.
Fantastic. How do you hit a two-handed backhand with more spin? My backhand's too flat and always lands far. I'm assuming long.
Long.
That's from Electro JR. Thanks for watching.
Is that on Facebook or
YouTube.
YouTube? Okay. I'm going to paste something in the chat.
Okay.
I think, I mean, we're talking about hitting it, we're hitting it long, and we're trying to get more spin on the two-handed backhand. One really important thing with the two-handed backhand is making sure that in your hands that you're relaxed or loose enough that you can let the racket get under the ball and achieve this position here to brush up. One big mistake for players that are trying to hit more spin that I see is they tend to keep their hands very stiff and locked, and when they go through the ball, the racket just travels from this position here right behind the ball and you extend through the ball, which creates that flat type of ball that sounds like you're hitting. So what you really want to focus on is when we get to this position here, that we want to relax our hands so it creates this downward action with the head, so we can now brush the ball going up, and that'll create more spin that allow you to get the ball in. The other thing you want to think about is that there has to be a good mix of, you don't want so much spin that the ball completely slows down and turns into a sitter, but we don't want the ball to be so flat. So there has to be a good mix of both, where you find the right combination of spin and drive to suit your situation. And there's a lot of different situations, you know, where you might want to be flatter than others, and you might actually want to create more spin than others.
Yeah, I think Kevin's use of the word mix is really perfect, because it's not one or the other. And I think a lot of amateur players think about drive or topspin in a very binary way. But the reality is, the word I've used a lot in our coaching in the past is ratio. Like, think of it as mixing or combining or creating a kind of an equation between drive and spin. You can hit a ball that has 90% drive and just 10% spin, which would be very flat, not a lot of margin for error, or 90% spin and 10% drive, which is a very loopy, heavy shot, and everything in between. If you know how to adjust how low the racket head drops, as Kevin was talking about, depending on the incoming ball, to hit the shape that you want to create to match the point situation, now you're really cooking, and now you've really got significant advantage on the court to be able to match what your shot looks like to the specific opponent or the specific situation. Most players do not have that awareness. They don't have that kind of control. But with training, it absolutely can be developed. I'll be right back. This juice is going through me. I'll make sure to mute my mic.
Bye, Ian. Okay. Well, first of all, I want to pause and say that someone said that I bring a nice two-handed backhand vibe to Essential Tennis, and that's like the nicest thing anyone's ever said about my backhand. So
Kirby's vibe.
I'm just throwing vibes. Okay, so I want to jump over, Kevin, to a question about the take back because we're getting a few of them.
Okay.
So which two-handed take back is better, the C loop or straight back? Is there advantage to one versus the other?
Their advantage. I don't know if there's an advantage. Well, I guess there could be an advantage. I've had players who've had both. Usually when I see a player doing kind of this looping action, it's maybe something that has to do with them trying to keep timing. So it's kind of a rhythm thing that they feel more comfortable creating this C loop. And, some players just take it straight back. I don't think there's really a disadvantage to the C loop or advantage, but I will say this. If you're using, let's say, the C loop, you have to be careful that your loop doesn't get too big and creating that your backswing so big that you start not having enough time to get to the contact. Well, that could be a little bit of the advantage of kind of going straight back and then having it easier to get to contact. But even with the straight back, if you take it back too far, the same thing happens. So in either take back, you got to really make sure that you're managing your time. So if the person hits the ball really hard and you have a C loop, you might split and take a smaller C. And then in a rally, if you have more time, you might take a bigger C. I've seen that. Same thing with the straight back. If I'm returning a serve, it's going to be a much smaller swing. And if I'm in a rally, it's going to be a little bit bigger swing on the take back.
Thank you for answering that because that answers a lot of return of serve questions. So if you're asking return of serve questions, then replay that. Okay, welcome back to the broadcast, Ian.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for joining us.
This is live.
Okay. So.
Feeling good.
Good. All right. Is there, let's see. Oh man. Okay. Anime Tennis says during the backswing, we were just talking about what's better, the C loop or going straight back. During the backswing, should the wrist be upright?
That's another one.
Well, I think it depends on which of those two you use. If you watch, I can never remember which backhand is which. I'm pretty sure it's Venus. On backhand side, just goes straight to a drop position. Yeah,
and her wrists are bent back.
Right, and so Serena sometimes as well. It depends on the shot. Both of them, but I think more so Venus, will go immediately to a dropped racket head and a curved wrist. And so that's totally opposite of what you'll see from most ATP players who begin with the racket head up. Not all of them, but many of them. We'll start with the racket head up and a neutral wrist, and then drop before coming up to the point of contact. So it's totally like stylistic, and it sounds like you guys talked about different shapes of backswing. So it depends on the timing, the rhythm, and the shape of backswing that you use.
Let's see.
That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah.
I have a problem. This is from Chris. It's not my problem.
We all got problems, Chris.
I got a problem. Launching my two-handed backhand long, I feel like I might be golf swinging it, sort of.
Okay.
How can I solve this problem?
It sounds like you are probably really stiff in the hands and what you might be doing. You're trying to drop the racket, potentially, here, stiff in the hands and doing this, where we're trying to drop it with this type of swing where I'm not really letting my wrist relax and dropping under to create some spin. So a great drill is just to, and this might be where I would also recommend you might do some left-handed drills where you just get in the habit of creating some topspin with your left hand and then let the left hand lead a little bit more to help you relax. So that could be a great drill. Another one is just getting a habit of where you get the racket where it's almost about to hit your leg here, because you know if it's about to hit your leg here, then it's going to probably be under the ball. And that'll help you instead of having this kind of golf swing where we're just, I don't know how to describe it, but we're dropping my hip down to get the racket onto the ball and then maybe selling it long. So without seeing it.
Kind of muscling through.
Yeah,
a little
muscling
bit,
through, just really stiff. Without seeing exactly what you're doing, I'm just envisioning what could be going wrong.
Ooh, this is not a backhand question, but I'm curious about the panel. Too bad Megan's not here. Dampeners or no? Dampener or no?
No dampener. I lost my dampener once and it drove me insane. The little ping, ping, ping. So I just decided to ixnay on dampeners and now I don't even hear the ping.
No dampener. Do
No
you
dampener.
use one?
No, I know.
No.
I did like in high school, and I don't know when I stopped or why, but I very much prefer. I feel like the more information I get, I'm very much kind of a feel, player. I think no dampener gives more auditory feedback as far as like the quality of contact. I like to know what's actually going on instead of masking it. Sorry if that sounds judgmental, but that's my preference. What about Megan? Does she use
No.
No?
Yeah, I agree. I think I can feel it so much better with, I don't know what it is. I've never really thought about that.
Does not actually change the shock or the vibration to your hand, FYI.
Oh.
It just changes the sound that the racket makes.
Got a question. If the ball has a high bounce with topspin towards my two-handed backhand, how should I take it? Do I backpedal back to hit the backhand and risk the opponent coming into the net? Or should I jump shot it?
Jump shot it.
Whoa, I didn't see that.
I know. It was like, you're
I
like, what?
know.
Jump shot.
I know.
The ninja jump.
I think you have a lot of, it's a bigger question than just that because it depends on your level because you might neutralize it and take the ball early and not back up. If you feel comfortable, if you do have to back up, because sometimes we do have to back up, it depends on what type of ball we're sending back. So if I'm backing up, I can also kind of tell if my opponent's sneaking in or coming in. So then it makes me want to hit a little bit lower ball. But if we're in a rally situation and they hit a good deep ball that backs me up, I'm just going to lift the ball up a little bit, send it back deep, and then regain the ground that they gained by pushing me back. I don't know about jump shotting. I haven't really experienced a jump shot.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever taught that shot. I'm trying to remember if I've ever taught it. Talking about like the Safin, back knee up.
Yeah, if you're like 6'5" and you got the two-handed jump shot going on, jump shot it then. He's a big boy. I saw him in Spain one time, and I was like,
could make an argument for the shorter you are, the more you need that shot.
Huh?
I mean,
I'd still take it on the right. I don't know about jump shot.
Kevin early on in his answer said kind of depends on athleticism, and I think that's definitely a big part of it. It depends on your style of play and what your opponent's style of play too. Like if they're looking to get in off of any opportunity possible, then probably be a good tactical play for you to not back up and give them that extra time, that extra space to work with. But you need to know your strengths too. Kevin earlier was talking about taking a step or two in and taking the ball right off the bounce. That's another option in that situation. Maybe even really moving in and taking the ball out of the air and totally turning the tables on that player who gave you that high, deep bouncing shot. So, I mean, there's like 5 different options. You have to know out of that list of 5, where do your strengths lie and what is your opponent hoping you do with that ball, and then do something else to try to turn the tables on them.
And I think to add one quick thing, you got to think about what's going to give you the highest probability of not getting you in trouble. So if I jump shot it, but I jump shot it and the ball's in the middle of the court and it sets up, what did you really do? It probably would be better to back up, lift it up high, and push them back. So, I mean, I'm thinking about not just, hey, what shot should I use? It's what shot am I going to use that puts me in the correct situation for whatever situation they've put me in.
I got a question for you guys.
I bet you do.
Katie Feely from Facebook, thanks for the question. Is it totally mental to be 100% committed to the one-handed, or to the two-handed backhand, but then also committed to using a one-handed backhand volley?
No.
I don't think so at all. I think it's totally different. I don't think it's
I agree.
crazy at all.
We're talking about 2 different things between a ground stroke and a volley. I personally, I don't want to say you have to have a one-handed backhand volley, but I definitely push players towards it if they feel comfortable or if they want to move that direction, because it just gives you more reach, a little bit more flexibility with balls that might be coming faster away from you. Doesn't mean you have to hit a one-handed volley, but definitely we're not talking volleys, but we're talking backhands today. But be committed to the one-handed backhand if that's what you want to do.
Yeah, I agree with Kevin. Completely different paradigms of like totally different types of shot, totally different goals and reasons for using those techniques. So they're totally separate.
Next question from Aura Blaze from YouTube. What tip improved your backhand the most?
I wish I had one.
Oh, Ian.
I didn't realize how and this is, I talked to you about this before.
Why do
Kirby.
people keep, oh, because I just
What's
took a
Kirby
sip.
drinking?
Yeah, I'm drinking tea.
Straight up.
Sorry.
I talked to Kirby a couple months ago about possibly doing a video series where I go out with like a camera guy and a tripod and an iPad and fix my backhand. Because I know what fundamental flaws I have in my backhand. I didn't start realizing it until I started teaching full time. I had no like awareness or clue in college, like why it was just a weaker shot. Anyway, a little bit of lead up. As I started teaching full time, I started making some realizations, and the biggest one that I know led to my crappier backhand was I had a very conservative grip, close to continental, for a one-handed backhand. And so with that as kind of my foundation, what felt like hitting topspin to me was in fact starting with an open face in my backswing and then closing over my racket as I went through the point of contact. And I remember like walking in and like doing, you know how you kind of do shadow swings like at the grocery store or like while you're pumping your gas or whatever. Like I used to literally, this was my shadow swing for my one-handed backhand, was closing the face over. I've since learned that that's not how topspin works. And as I was teaching, I kind of started playing around with different grips and realized that the straighter my hand was across the handle, the easier it was for me to drop the racket head and rotate my racket instead of turning it over. So as of right now, for me, that's the biggest kind of like aha moment that I had about my own backhand in terms of technique. Had I started with this kind of framework, then I would be in a totally different place with my backhand than this kind of framework. So that's what it is for me.
For me, I think the biggest key is understanding the leverage position. And I personally feel like there's a leverage position in every stroke. And if you can understand this leverage position, for me, it made a ginormous difference to all of my strokes, especially with my backhand. And I think of it kind of like, how can you efficiently use the racket? I think my biggest analogy is, how would you hammer, if you had a nail, how would you hammer it? Would you take the nail here and hammer it like this? Or would you do this? And this action is basically what I think is the key to having a great backhand, because what I'm doing is I'm using a little bit of energy here, and look what happens to the butt of the head of the racket. It moves much faster. Now you're like, how does that work? Now, if I did the same thing here, if I'm hammering like this, which I see a lot of people doing, they don't have the leverage position. But if I'm taking that nail and I'm hammering here, and I actually flip the grip to what Ian was talking about, look what happens. I really, really know if my backhand's a little off, I'm usually not in this leverage position where I get to pull the racket and accelerate the racket face. That way, in any position, whether I'm open, I'm closed, I can generate racket at speed because I'm pulling this leverage position through the ball. So I think that's one of the biggest things that I learned that really helped me, where I can generate topspin, pace, and it doesn't require a lot of work. It's just making sure that I connected with that leverage position.
I like that explanation. Kirby, you're the two-handed spokesperson.
Oh my God. My backhand we've been through a lot together.
That's a good way of saying it.
I was actually a couple years ago, maybe like a year and a half ago, trying to come up with a video about that. It basically equated my backhand
my
to a bad relationship. Yeah, it was going to be called My Boyfriend, My Backhand.
Did you ever make that video?
No.
Never made it?
I would love
Like,
to,
no.
though, if we have time. Oh, Gabe? We have time. Okay, so My Boyfriend, My Backhand, it's a terrible relationship. We've had so many highs, so many lows. Now I'm in a good spot with it, but for such a long time.
Was it an abusive relationship?
Yes. both ways.
Yeah, who's doing the abusing?
I was talking about the backhand for the record.
But it just, I lost it. You know that feeling, you guys, when you just,
Yes.
you lose it and it's nowhere to be found. And it happens overnight and you lose all confidence. It's shattered. So I think the most helpful thing for me, without getting too technical and going too deep into it,
Personal.
because I had to rebuild the foundation, was the most important thing for me was putting it into perspective, that I had so many voices in my head that this coach says this coach says that. So I had a laundry list in my head of do this, do that, drop the racket, make sure this. So by the time that the ball actually came to me, instead of just freely hitting and not thinking about it, like my forehand, instead it was like, oh crap, every time that the ball came to me. And that's the worst feeling that you can have. And so I think just eliminating that and throwing it all out and starting fresh was the best thing that happened for my backhand. And then putting in that loop really, really helped my timing. I just want to throw this out there that we have these chats on YouTube and on Facebook every week at 11:30 a.m. on Wednesdays. And if you don't get your questions answered, we have the same chats in Academy. So we're going to jump over to Academy shortly. And we have a similar broadcast happening soon. And in that, we make sure that everybody's question gets answered. So if you are not already in Academy, make sure that you go to Essential Tennis Academy and sign up. .com. So do you guys have any last remarks about the backhand?
About the backhand. I would say, because I experienced a little bit of the dreaded love-hate relationship. And looking back now, I think it's so important that before you jump down the rabbit hole of like completely not having a great relationship with a stroke, that you start listening to your self-talk. And you'd be amazed at the level of how dark the self-talk gets.
Yeah.
And if you can start doing that early, if you can stop that road early, it really helps, because it's interesting that, I really prefer my forehand, and I've gotten to a point where I love my backhand too, sometimes scary enough more than my forehand. But I noticed when, at a time when I was switching from my two-handed to my one-handed backhand, right after college, if I miss a forehand, it was almost like an accident. It was like, no way, I didn't miss that. And it's like nothing really interrupted that confidence, because my self-talk was always like, no way. But when I would miss a backhand, when I had a two-handed backhand, and I was like, oh my God, this is the worst shot ever, or you get tight, or your left hand, it's just the different mindset that you put yourself in. So I would definitely say, really be aware and be conscious of like what kind of self-talk you have. And then try to just be aware of it, and try to not go down that rabbit hole. I like now, if I miss a backhand, I'm like, okay, whatever. I can hit a backhand. It's just a different level of communication with yourself, which I think creates a lot of confidence. And then once you believe in a shot, I think it does make it easier, because you're not mentally caught up into being tight, being like caught up in like, this is my worst shot ever. So there you go.
I think belief is a good word for it, which I've been through anything from neutral, like kind of like not one way or the other, not leaning towards super confident, not being super negative, is about the best my backhand's ever got. My drive, my slice, like I super, super confident. My drive has been anywhere from like neutral to like the bottom, like possible, the worst possible attitude about it. And I think belief is a really good word that Kevin used. If I were to start actually working on my own game right now, I would go make the fundamental changes to my stroke technique that I know need to be made, to my subconscious habits. And then B, I would not let myself hit a forehand for like a couple weeks. And I think the combination of fundamentals and repetition is what's going to lead to the belief that he was talking about. And so if you're in a place where you just hate your backhand, you need both those two things. If you love your forehand, and so you only hit your forehand when you have the choice in practice and in matches, then just don't be surprised that your backhand continues to be a second-class citizen.
I like that. Like it. All right, you guys, we are not going to be back here next week because we will be in Costa Rica. So stay tuned for our videos from our experience there. We're going to be down there with a group of students for an entire week. It's going to be wonderful. But we will be back the following week at 11:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure if you like this video, give it a big thumbs up. Comment below with any more questions you have, and make sure that you subscribe to our channel so you never miss a single lesson.
Hasta luego. Adios.
Hey, Facebook.